There is a mouse in your walls right now. You might not know it yet. You might not hear it. But statistically, if you own a home, the odds are not in your favor. Here is what most people never find out until it is too late. Mice do not enter homes because they are lost. They do not wander in by accident. They scout. They test. They return to the same entry points over and over again, sometimes for generations, because the scent markers left behind by the first mouse essentially act as a welcome sign for every mouse that comes after it. And the pest control industry? They know this. They have always known this. Every time a technician comes to your door with a contract in hand, they are not selling you a solution. They are selling you a subscription to a problem that never actually gets solved. Traps catch individual mice. Poison thins the population temporarily. But neither one addresses the reason mice chose your property in the first place. The numbers are staggering. The American housing industry estimates that rodent damage costs homeowners in the United States over $19 billion every single year. Chewed wiring, contaminated insulation, structural damage hidden inside walls where no one thinks to look until the repair bill arrives. But here is what almost nobody is talking about. There is a permanent natural deterrent that costs almost nothing, requires almost no maintenance, and works on a biological level that mice simply cannot override. And it fits in one corner of your yard. The pest control industry in the United States generates somewhere around $9 billion in revenue every single year. Let that number sit for a moment. $9 billion. And a significant portion of that money comes from residential rodent control alone. Repeat customers, quarterly visits, annual contracts. The business model only works if the problem keeps coming back. And the problem always keeps coming back, because the solutions being sold to you are designed to manage, not eliminate. Here is something the industry understands deeply but rarely explains out loud. Mice do not respond to traps the way most people imagine. You catch one, you feel like you have won something. But that mouse was part of a population, a network, a family unit with established roots, established nesting sites, and established chemical signals embedded into the very surfaces of your home. Remove one mouse and another will follow the same trail within days, sometimes within hours. The scent is still there, the invitation is still open. What exterminators sell is disruption, temporary, cyclical, billable disruption. And the companies that manufacture the products they use have spent decades funding research into everything except the one category of solution that would actually put them out of business. Natural deterrents. Specifically plant-based deterrents rooted in chemistry that predates human civilization by millions of years. There are documented cases of pest control lobbying groups pushing back against municipal guidelines that encouraged homeowners to use landscaping as a first line of rodent defense. Not because the science was weak. The science was strong. But because a homeowner who solves their mouse problem with a plant in the corner of their yard stops paying monthly service fees. That is not a customer anymore. That is a lost account. The information has always been available. University agricultural extensions have published studies on it. Entomologists and wildlife biologists have written about it. But it does not get packaged into a television commercial or a sponsored social media post, because there is no profit margin in telling someone to go to a garden center. What mice are responding to, what they have always been responding to, is smell. Their entire relationship with the world is chemical. They navigate by it, communicate by it, assess danger by it. And there is one plant whose scent profile registers in the mouse's nervous system not as an annoyance, but as a genuine biological warning, a signal that says, do not enter, do not return. This is not safe ground. And that signal does not fade after a week like a trap's effectiveness does. It grows stronger every single season. The plant is mint, specifically peppermint, but not the little decorative pot you keep on a kitchen windowsill, not the tea bag you steep on a Sunday morning. We are talking about a mature, established peppermint plant allowed to grow, aggressively in the ground, in the right location, in the right conditions, where it does exactly what nature designed it to do. Peppermint produces a compound called menthol. You already know what menthol smells like. To you, it is refreshing, slightly cool, pleasant. But your nose is processing that scent at a fraction of the sensitivity that a mouse's nose does. A mouse has roughly 1,000 times the olfactory receptor capacity that a human has. When a mouse gets within range of a mature, thriving peppermint plant, it is not smelling a hint of mint. It is receiving something closer to a sensory alarm. The menthol concentration in the air around a healthy plant is, to that animal, genuinely overwhelming, disorienting. It interferes with their ability to detect other smells, which means it interferes with their ability to feel safe. And a mouse that cannot assess its environment for predators is a mouse that will not stay. But here is the part that most people miss entirely. It is not just about the scent, it is about what the scent represents in the mouse's evolutionary memory. Menthol and the volatile oils in peppermint occur naturally in environments where certain predator species are active. The mouse brain, over thousands of generations, has learned to associate that chemical signature with danger. It is not a learned behavior. It is hardwired. You are not teaching the mouse to avoid your yard. You are triggering something ancient in its nervous system that was already there. Now, dried peppermint oil on a cotton ball, the kind of folk remedy you may have read about in a list of home tips, does not accomplish this. The oil degrades quickly. It does not regenerate. It does not respond to rain or heat or the changing of seasons. A living plant does all of those things. A living plant actually increases its production of menthol when it is under environmental stress, which means it gets more potent in the conditions that also drive mice to seek shelter indoors. The two systems work in opposition. The plant pushes harder exactly when the pressure from mice is highest. And unlike traps, unlike poison, unlike the quarterly visit from a technician who shows up, collects a check, and leaves, the plant does not stop working. It compounds. It spreads. It establishes a perimeter that strengthens with every growing season rather than weakening. That is not a temporary fix. That is a permanent shift in the conditions around your home. So let's talk about what is actually happening inside the mouse when it encounters that corner. Because understanding the mechanism is what separates this from superstition. This is not folklore. This is chemistry and neurology working together in a way that no manufactured product has ever been able to replicate. Mice rely on their sense of smell in a way that most people cannot fully appreciate. A human has roughly 6 million olfactory receptors. A mouse has somewhere between 12 and 14 times that number. Their entire map of the world is built from scent. They navigate by it. They find food by it. They detect predators by it. It is not one of their senses. It is essentially all of them compressed into a single, overwhelming system. When a mouse encounters high concentrations of menthol compounds in the air, the experience is not unpleasant the way a strong cologne might be unpleasant to you. It is closer to what you would feel if someone held ammonia directly under your nose for an extended period. The trigeminal nerve, which runs directly from the nasal cavity deep into the brain, activates in a way that reads as physical pain, not discomfort. Pain. The mouse is not choosing to leave. The mouse is responding to something its nervous system is classifying as an active threat to its survival. And here is where the living plant becomes something that no spray bottle can touch. The peppermint plant continuously releases volatile organic compounds from its leaves, its stems, and the soil around its roots. Those compounds do not disperse and disappear the way a sprayed application does. They maintain a consistent concentration in the immediate environment. The mouse does not get to wait it out. There is no window of time after the spray has faded when it can slip through safely. The barrier is always present. What makes this even more significant is that mice do not habituate to this stimulus the way they habituate to almost everything else. They learn around traps. They become cautious about bait after watching other mice die near it. Their adaptability is one of the primary reasons exterminators keep coming back quarter after quarter, year after year. But the trigeminal response to menthol is not a cognitive reaction. It is not something the mouse can reason its way around or slowly build a tolerance to through repeated exposure. It fires at the neurological level every single time. The plant is not asking the mouse to make a decision. It is removing the decision entirely. And that distinction is exactly why this works when so many other methods eventually stop working. So now you understand why it works. The next question is where to put it and how to do it right. Because planting mint, and yes, that is what we are talking about, specifically peppermint, in the wrong spot will give you a fragrant garden and nothing else. The placement is everything. Mice do not enter your home from every direction equally. They follow walls. They hug fence lines. They move along the foundation, close to cover, rarely crossing open ground. They are looking for a gap, a crack, a point of entry, and they are almost always finding it at the corners of your home. Corners are where two walls meet, where the foundation has the most seams, where pipes and wires tend to exit and enter. Corners are the mouse's preferred access point, and that is exactly where your plant needs to be. You are not trying to ring the entire perimeter of your property. That would take more plants than most people have space or patience for, and it is not necessary. What you are trying to do is establish a concentrated source of volatile compounds directly at the path of least resistance. One densely planted corner, positioned at the exterior angle of your home closest to where mice are most likely approaching from a fence line, a neighboring lot, a wooded edge, a garage or outbuilding, creates a chemical wall precisely where that wall is needed most. Plant peppermint in a cluster, not a line. You want density. A group of 6 to 10 plants in a roughly 2-foot spread will produce a significantly higher concentration of airborne menthol than the same number of plants spaced apart. Put them directly into the ground rather than containers if you can, because the root system releases compounds into the soil that add a secondary layer of deterrence along the foundation itself. Peppermint spreads aggressively, and most gardeners treat that as a problem. In this application, it is a feature. Give it a season, and it will fill that corner on its own. You will not be tending it constantly. You will not be reapplying anything. You will not be scheduling a quarterly visit from someone charging you $150 to spray a chemical that dissipates in 3 weeks. Trim the plants occasionally to encourage new leaf growth because fresh growth releases more volatile oil than older, woodier stems. Morning is when the concentration is highest, but the effect persists throughout the day and into the night, which is precisely when mice are most active. The work is minimal. The result is continuous. And then there are the people who just tried it, not because of a study, not because someone told them the chemistry, because they were tired. Sandra from rural Ohio had been fighting mice for 11 years. She had the traps, the bait stations, the steel wool shoved into gaps she could barely reach. Every fall, without fail, they came back. She planted a cluster of peppermint in the northeast corner of her house, the corner that faced the tree line, in late spring. By October, the corner that had always been her worst entry point was quiet. No droppings, no chewed packaging in the cabinet above it. Nothing. She said it felt almost suspicious at first, like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. A man named Dale in central Pennsylvania tells a similar story, except his problem was in a detached garage. Mice were nesting in his workbench insulation every single winter. He put 2 clusters of peppermint on either side of the garage's main entrance, and a third near the back wall where he'd found the most activity. First winter, nothing got in. He's now 3 years out and still hasn't reset a single trap in that building. There are dozens of versions of this story online if you look for them. A woman in Minnesota who stopped seeing evidence under her kitchen sink for the first time in 4 years. A family in Tennessee who had previously been on a monthly exterminator contract canceled it after 1 growing season and saved over $1,800 in the following 2 years. None of these people are scientists. They are not running controlled experiments. But there is a consistency to what they describe that is difficult to ignore. The corner that always seemed to be the problem spot. The fall season that came and went without the usual signs. The slow realization that something had actually changed. What's notable is not just that it worked, it's how long it kept working. Not 3 weeks, not 1 season. These plants come back every year, spread further every year, and the mice, by all accounts, simply stop treating that corner as an option. So here is where you are. You have a problem that keeps coming back. You have probably spent money on it. You have probably spent time on it. And somewhere along the way, you accepted that this was just part of owning a home, that mice were something you managed rather than something you solved. But the evidence keeps pointing in a different direction. 1 corner, 1 plant, 1 growing season to find out if your situation looks like the ones you just heard about. The cost is almost nothing, a few dollars for starts or seeds, an afternoon in the yard, and the patience to let something grow. That is the entire ask. If it works, and for a significant number of people it does, you are not looking at temporary relief. You are looking at a perennial solution that returns on its own every spring, spreads further on its own every year, and costs you nothing after that first afternoon. The exterminator model depends on you not knowing this is possible. It depends on you believing that the only answer comes in a contract, in a truck, in a bill that shows up every month whether the problem is getting better or not. You do not have to keep participating in that system. Find the corner. Plant the corner. Give it 1 season. The people who did it are not looking back. There is no reason you should have to either.